Hello, welcome back. I'm the Necromancer Erebus. I don't feel good. I don't feel good at all. I was very sick last night actually, so I am doing what I can with what I have right now. So I'm gonna try going through this video and finishing it up. This is gonna be the final video. This is the third section of the folk magic series that I kind of did. It was intending to be only be like one video, but I realized all the subject matter that I wanted to cover was not going to be covered in the videos that I did. So this one's going to be specifically about spirit working. So I want to make sure that everyone's aware that this is covering that specifically. But before I do so, I do want to thank everyone for joining me again because this is a lot of fun for me and people engaging with me in the videos is actually one of the reasons why I wanted to do all this to begin with. And so additionally, we're going to go over some things that some other people had mentioned because in one of the earlier videos I mentioned how your topographical placements actually do impact your cardinal directions. So I don't feel good, I'm so sorry. We're going to cover three particular individuals whom had reached out to me within that time regarding how your cardinal directions when you're doing ritual and spell work uh, can be impacted by your local positioning. And so those three particular individuals are Mama Raven, La Raccoon Rouge, and Astrius from the Temple Astri Inferni. So I want to go ahead. I'm really not feeling good, but I really want to get this video out there because I enjoyed it a lot and I don't like making people wait for this material. But Mama Raven had added that most magical traditions have magical elements that are associated with the cardinal directions, and those examples and directions do change according to the tradition. And for example, we have the Irish Celtic tradition that doesn't have fire. They have earth, sea, and sky, and rather than cardinal directions, they have above, here, and below. So that is like a lot of wiggle room for you to kind of work with that. However, in most modern magic is based on Western lodge traditions with earth in the north, air in the fire, air or fire in the east, fire or air in the south, and water in the west. However, those of us who work with the land and the spirits of the land, they may consider other options. If you're connected to a culture that uses different elements or directions, perhaps consider adopting those. If not, if you feel most comfortable with Western tradition, she says she recommends that you still consider your location. They live in Missouri and they have a gigantic river to their east, a desert to their south, and a mountain range to their west, and a lot of cold air coming down from the north. Locally, she says that she has a river to her west, woods to her north, and a lot of birds to her east, and a bunch of restaurants to her south. Um, they say that if they're doing a large working, her elemental directions are north air, east water, south fire, west earth. And if they're doing a localized working, the directions, elemental directions are the traditional ones, so north, east, south fire, west water. If she lived elsewhere, the local directions would change, as would the larger. For example, someone living in Michigan would obviously have water in the north. Current climate is also something that should be considered. For example, right now, I lost it. I did actually copy this into a document. Uh, New York's New York State's fires to the north, Canada, poor people up there. It is my personal experience that adapting my elemental directions. Those are quotes, by the way. I'm not saying that she is. Directions to the land that she's working with and on has allowed me to better incorporate the local and not so local land spirits to the rights, rituals, and protections, which has given those practices quite a boost to their aid. The static directions come out of the Western ceremonial traditions. That's a keynote as well. Static directions come out of Western ceremonial traditions. But she says that she doesn't believe that they were ever meant to be restrictive, just like a starting point for working with the spirits of those elements and with the astrological watchtowers. And then when working with the watchtowers, it makes sense to stick with tradition. The stars they're connected to don't shift enough for their directions to be variable. But when working with the elementals and the rulers, adaptation is to the local environment works better simply because connecting with those spirits in their element is easier. Yeah, she says, and I quote, yes, I could absolutely work with undines without hooking into the river, but that would be harder, not to mention difficult for the undines. I see it as a courtesy. So yeah, that is very correct. So when I literally the river, like the Buffalo Lake is literally like right there. Like I can see it from my house. So it's a lot easier for me to work with that being north, being water. And then literally like my backyard is all wilderness, but just beyond like at the tree line it is broad open plains, that's mixed a little bit with some marshland because Wisconsin has a lot of that. So that would be like more so my air elemental because it's way out that way. So and then that direction is also the bluffs, so that'd be earth. And then like that direction, um by process of elimination, is going to be probably my fire. So it all kind of comes full circle in that regard. Le Raccoon Rouge says, I have this in my notes. In the southern hemisphere, north is fire, south is earth or water. This is more about seasons than directions, but I feel like it belongs in this conversation. Depending on seasons and climate of your country, corresponding seasons and directions may vary. Example, in Greece, harvest or fall is twice a year. The intense heat of the summer commands it to be the season of rest, while winter, which is the season of rest in most other northern countries, is more temperate and rain, thus corresponding to water in Greece, but to earth and silence in the northern countries. The solidification of elements like water becoming ice, time standing still. I hope this makes sense. There are notes. I don't have time to rephrase. That's okay, Raccoon Rouge. We have it covered, I think so. Keep in mind that your seasons do impact how your elemental correspondences may work. You're rude. Um, so why are you frumpy? So um keep in mind that your seasonal correspondences may also greatly impact what you have access to and how you have access to it. Astrius says that he went through, looked at Google Maps, and thought about the corresponding elementals and where the cardinal directions might be. He says that south for Earth for the massive forest or park, west for water for him because of the lake that's right down the road. North is air for the big university, wisdom, knowledge, and communication for air. And then east for him is fire, mostly by process of elimination, but that's also where downtown is, so it kind of tracks. Yes, it does, because fire is really that element of fire, passion and energy, and so downtown is like where all your clubs are, your bars, etc. So all of that excitement is all going to be associated with fire. Bigger picture, because he lives in North Carolina in general. East is water, coastline over there. West is earth for the mountains. South is still fire for obvious reasons. You're closer to the equator. North is by process of elimination, air. Um, and so I just wanted to give a shout out and thank you to those three particular participants who had gotten back to me as I was making this video. And then I'm going to move on with the development of the relationships with these spirits as well. So now you have an idea as to how your core cardinal directions can actually be adjusted according to your topographical situation and where you are settled. Um, so we're going to go into how you are developing relationships with these spirits. I'm actually just going to be giving you a nice list of things I would like people to be mindful of as they develop relationships with spirits, because how you present yourself and how you are present in moments and situations when you are engaging with spirits is super impactful. It can really make or break how your relationships with these spirits go and how they will respond to you in kind. So, this list that I'm presenting with you is just a list of things. How you choose to go about these is completely up to you. But there are things I think that you should be bearing in mind when you're trying to engage with your local spirits. There are things that I bear in mind and how I utilize this particular information in an effort to cultivate better relationships with the things that are around me. That's why this section is going to be primarily just the spirit working section. Um, so folk magic as a whole works heavily with all the local spirits and the energies and forces around you, of course. So when you are folk magic being of the people, that's not just like human people. That is also the spirits as well that you have around you. So knowing what you need. So, what do the local spirits need? How can you respect boundaries between wildlife and your home? How are you incorporating the concepts of wildlife as well as your place where you have settled? And how are you creating balance between those things? And what do you take from them and how do you pay them in return? One of the things I think that people forget a lot is that you are always experiencing an exchange. So, when I go out and I am engaging with the natural environment, I am by default already giving an exchange of some sort. Always be aware of what you are accepting and how you're accepting it, as well as why. If you accept something but you don't know why you have accepted it. You have endangered yourself greatly without even realizing it. There's always a price to be had for everything that you have obtained from outside of your home and your sanctuary. And you need to be aware that if you don't know what you've traded, you may have done something grievously misfortunate to yourself. Be aware of those concepts. Um, all things should have an equal or similar trade. So know what they want and offer it in kind. When you do know when, or how do you know when you should leave something be, and what signals do you get when something tells you to leave or stay? It's perfectly okay for you to take divinatory methods with you. Now, if you're out in the wilderness and you're out trying to cultivate relationships with the loci or like trees and other spirits in order to incorporate them into your workings, one of the things you're going to find out very quickly is that there's a thing called wind. And that doesn't work very well if you bring cards out for your divinatory method. So when you are working with these spirits, one of the things that I always encourage people to do is to bring a divinatory method. But if you don't bring your tarot cards, what can you bring? One of the things that I always encourage people to bring is a coin. Coins not only are they very useful as payment methods, but they are also very good for being used for yes or no answers, which is usually all you need. If you got good discernment and intuition, yes or no is really all you need in order to confirm a lot of things. Additionally, if you have knowledge of your hands and the lines on your palms, you can utilize that in an effort to, I don't know why I worded it like that. Use your palms as a divinatory, um, use your palms as a divinatory tool and bring a pendulum with you. Most necklaces and pendants that you have are easily made into pendulums. She's just being a problem child. So what you do is you take your necklace off or your pendant or whatever you have and you hold it over your hand. And if you have a decent knowledge and understanding of the lines of your hand, you just hold it over your hand and that is your pendulum board for your discernment or your divination. Another thing that you can bring is dice because they don't really blow away as easily. They can get lost quite easily in the woods and forest though, so just bear in mind. And then you can also utilize like a throwing set. If you have a magpie set or osteomancy set, bones don't usually go very far when you throw them down. They're not going to be carried away by the wind super easily. Um, Another thing that you can keep in mind and bear in mind, it's really busy on my road right now. Um, how do you respect your environment? So in the queue of how do you when do you leave something be? Like what sort of signals do you get when you're being told to leave or stay? Um, what cues do you have? This also holds true with like whether or not you choose to bring um, like a bag with you in order to like pick up litter. Not everything should be picked up and cleaned up. This is also an etiquette cue for people who work in and do like cemetery or death work, and you work uh, your work with the dead brings you to cemeteries or graveyards, and that does not mean that you should just pick everything up. That does not don't do that. Um, the way that Solaris mentioned it was, how would you like it if somebody just invaded your home and then just started moving things around? Some things in nature and in other categories of when you clean things up have been reclaimed or claimed by the spirits and the forces that already are residing in that space. Know when you should leave something and when it's okay for you to help clean things up. Because litter is obviously bad, but a lot of common items that you may find that they don't want you to remove are things like jewelry that people have lost. Glass is a lot of times a big one. It creates good environments for like moss and critters, and all your decomposers really like glass because it creates a nice humid warm environment. Even like tin and some metals like hands are not always like something that they want you to take as well. Just bear in mind and be sensitive about what you should take and what you should not be taking. And then how do you walk through these spaces? A big quote that I'm always reminded of whenever I go into anywhere where I'm trying to engage with spirits. Why do they have to be so loud when they drive by? Is do not present yourself, just be present. So, how you present yourself is going to greatly impact how a spirit wants to engage with you, or not at all for that matter. If you are presenting yourself, you may come off as somebody that they really don't want to deal with. They don't want to deal with another one of you. But if you are just present and you allow yourself to be present, it makes it a lot easier for spirits to want to engage with you. And how you choose to cue and tune into the spirits and the energies that are within your area is going to really impact how you also are received by them as well. So be present in their spaces. Don't present yourself. You don't have to present yourself. I assure you, they already know you're there. Um, what spaces should you not intrude on, and how can you tell? Once again, divinatory skills. If you haven't got instinct that says, "Don't come near me," don't come over here, then it might not hurt to bear that in mind. That maybe you shouldn't be there. She's moping because I kicked her off the bookshelf. Um, Another thing to keep in mind is, do you have tools meant for the tasks that you have set out to accomplish? Did you bring anything that harms the environment with you? There are particular tools and things that you can bring with you that will help you more appropriately harvest from the environments. Doing and utilizing these tools, consecrating them first, blessing them first, and asking if it's okay for you to take from them is super duper important. Don't skip over this step because you're lazy. Don't do it because these forces, these spirits, they can and will like lay you out, and you really don't want that. These children. Um, Something that's not really a necessity, but I think it's very important, is learning mindfulness. Not just like where you are and what you're doing, but what you choose to give value to. The next few sections I'm going to cover are actually around how you find value in what you already have. So, learning, just a fun project for people is to learn how to upcycle things, because that not only gives you an out of the box thinking skill for what you have around you and what's available to you, but it also allows you to look at the things that are being that you are taking with you, and the spirits and what they are giving to you in order to work with a little bit more flexibility. You don't have to use everything just with its pure corresponding elements. Like, you can combine them, you can work with them, you can meld them and mesh them and weave them into one another. And having a little bit of a creative attitude towards these things is super duper important. Reusing and recycling materials is super fun. You can utilize an old empty milk jug and poke holes in the top of it, and then you can utilize that as a makeshift watering can, and you can use that to water things. You can also take your glass bottles and you can make them into wind chimes by, cutting off you take like twine or thread or something like that, and then you put alcohol on it to light it on fire, and then you break it apart and then kind of sand it down so it's nice and smooth, and now you have utilized a glass bottle. And you may take shells or bones or other substances or twigs and tie them to it, so that way they make the nice little clinging sound, and now you have incorporated not only elements from your local spirits, but you have made a wind chime that helps cleanse things utilizing all those spirits. So now you have wind and water if you used shells in order to, cleanse your home. So just concepts for you to tap into your creative side and utilize a lot of the things that you may not have thought about in a little bit of a different way, and challenge yourself to be adaptive to different circumstances and needs. Learning and knowing how to give value to everything is going to really increase how much that spirits are actually even willing to work with you. If you can't, if they feel like you don't value them and their presence or what they have to offer, they don't want to work with you. I promise you that. They won't want to work with you if they feel like you're just going to waste their time and their energy as well as their resources. Imagine if this was another person and you knew that this person obviously didn't value you or your time or your resources, and they just pooped all over you. Like, you wouldn't want to work with them. Why would you want to engage with them? Your attitude and how you choose to present yourself like that is going to greatly impact whether or not they're going to even bother with wasting their time with you. And that's part of earning their respect, because they don't really have to do anything for you. They don't have to do anything at all. Like, they'll keep going without you. You're not that important. And I think that's one of the things that I think people oftentimes forget, is that society as a whole, we have kind of become very far removed from our place within the ecology of everything. Like, we're not really exempt from the rules and laws of nature. We never have been. We've just made it easier for us to distance ourselves from that concept. And I think that's greatly going to need adjustment for people who are engaging in this sort of field from like a little bit later on in their lives. If you did not have a already supportive background from like any sort of classification of like either through farmers or farmsteaders, beekeepers, if you didn't have a good connection already to like the natural world around you, you may have a very difficult time getting out of that mindset and that mentality that we are still part of the natural whole of things. And it's a little bit humbling because it allows you to have a grander perspective of everything that's around you without the ego part. And then it also gives you a little bit more realistic understanding as to what you can accomplish and what you are not able to accomplish, because you know what you have access to and what you don't have access to, as well as what power you internally have in order to um, wield those allowances and those permissions that you have. So that's something I wanted. Uh, those are just a list of things I wanted everyone to kind of hear about in order to really work closely with your local spirits and how you would develop those relationships. This is a very long video. I'm going to get better with making them shorter. I think I just don't have a filter right now because I think right now in my mind, all of this information is exceptionally valuable. I think that's it. I think that's all I think I want to cover in this video. If there's anything that anyone would like me to elaborate on or add more of, just feel free to let me know in the comments, or just find me in Discord, of course. So if you feel like there's something you want me to speak more about or give more examples of, it's totally fine. Just reach out and I will try to compile a list and a video in the future about the details that you guys would like me to elaborate more on. Once again, thank you for those three who had provided those extra little tidbits of information for me. I'm going to go ahead and cut this out short. So thank you again for joining me. And I am going to try to now drill through a whole nother video for someone else in particular. So look forward to that. It's going to actually be dealing with spirit working specifically, but we're going to be giving an example as to how I work with spirits of the dead. Not humans, though. We're going to be covering animals first because I have an example and I have somebody who needs this information. So we're going to be doing this all in one. So I'm going to try to take care of that. Thank you again for joining me. Obviously, you know what to do if you would like to see more of this. You know how to let me know.